After my sister finished cutting the cake on her 18th birthday, she pouted and suggested we play hide and seek. Just before the blindfold went on, I saw her exchange a look with our parents. I did not think much of it. Not until I finished counting to 100, pulled off the blindfold, and found the entire villa empty. I called my parents again and again. Every call was cut off, so I opened social media. 1 minute earlier, my sister had posted a photo. In the photo, she and our parents were wearing sunglasses, lounging on beach chairs in Chess Royales. The caption read, "Escaping the heat abroad with family." How nice. I did not even need to check to know what my mother had commented. Don't tease her like that next time. She's already pitiful enough being ugly. Except there would always be a next time. And every time would be worse than the last. I stared at the ocean in the photo. Then, all at once, I felt there was no need to feel wronged anymore. I turned off my phone and picked up my suitcase. There were 3 hours left before my flight overseas, before I cut ties with them for good. From now on, the 3 of them could enjoy themselves without me. My phone screen suddenly lit up. It was a video call from my mother. I tapped to answer. The screen filled with blinding sunlight, and the sound of waves crashed loudly in the background. My mother was wearing a wide sun hat. She angled the camera toward herself and smiled. "Ingrid," she said, "don't be upset that we didn't bring you. The beaches in Chess Royales all require bikinis. Imagine scaring people with that face of yours." My father's voice came from off-screen. "It's Nellie's 18th birthday this time, so we're letting her have her way. We'll bring you 2 when it's your birthday next." I looked at the 3 of them huddled together on the screen. No need. I don't plan on celebrating my birthday ever again. There was a brief silence on the other end. The smile vanished from my mother's face. "We just went out to have some fun without telling you in advance. It's your sister's birthday. What's wrong with letting her have her way?" My father snatched the phone. "Ingrid Scott, we spent money raising you, and now you're putting on airs." I stared at the finger he pointed straight at the camera. In all 18 years of my life, they had never once spent my birthday with me. Every year, the happiest person on my birthday was my sister. They would use my birthday as an excuse to buy her whatever limited edition bag she wanted, while I could only eat what was left of her cake. My mother let out a cold snort beside him. I zipped up my suitcase. "That's why I won't celebrate anymore," I said evenly. My father suddenly burst into laughter, clapping my sister on the shoulder. "Nellie, looks like you win again. Your sister really is mad." My mother joined in. "Nellie, you win. Later, we'll stop by the duty-free shop. I'll buy you that Chanel bag you wanted." So they had made a bet. And I was the stake. They were betting on whether I would get angry after being left alone in the villa. After laughing, my father's expression turned cold again as he stared into the camera. "We'll be back this afternoon." I said nothing and hung up. So they haven't gone to Chess Royales at all. They're at a private beach in the same city, posting a fake location just to fool me. I stared at the now dark screen of my phone. When I was 5, they had taken my sister, Natalie, and me to an amusement park. She said she wanted to play hide and seek. My mother pulled me behind a tree and blindfolded me. "Count to 100 before you open your eyes." I obediently closed my eyes and counted to 100. When I opened them, the park was packed with people, but they were nowhere to be found. I stood there and waited the entire day. By nightfall, the park had closed and security took me to the police station. Near midnight, my parents walked in, holding Natalie's hand as she clutched a stick of cotton candy. When the police asked where they had gone, my mother smiled and said, "Our daughter wanted roast chicken from the south side of the city, so we went to eat and forgot our other one was still at the park." That night, when we got home, my father beat me. "Why were you crying in front of the police? You made it look like we abused you." From that day on, I knew I could never wait for them to come back for me. I turned the family photo of the 3 of them face down on the table. Then, I picked up my suitcase and headed for the door. I had just reached the entryway when the door opened. My parents walked in with Natalie, who was wearing a floral dress. Their hands were full of shopping bags. When my mother saw me standing by the door with a suitcase in hand, she froze for a moment. Then she set the cake box onto the shoe cabinet. "You actually packed your bags? All right, enough of this act. Put the suitcase back." My father changed his shoes and walked over, kicking my suitcase. "This ends here, you hear me?" Natalie stepped forward and looped her arm through my mother's. "Iggy, don't be mad anymore. Mom and Dad knew they shouldn't have left you alone at the villa in the first place. See, they came back early just to apologize to you." My mother followed her lead. "Exactly. This is the first time we've ever apologized to you. Be grateful. Come here, we even bought your favorite cake. Your sister doesn't even get this kind of treatment." Natalie pouted. "Yeah, Mom and Dad have never apologized to me before. Iggy, you're really something." My mother opened the cake box. It was a caramel cake covered in crushed peanuts, Natalie's favorite flavor. She cut a large slice, placed it on a paper plate, and held it out to me. "Here, eat." I looked at the cake but did not take it. "I'm not eating that." My mother's hand froze midair, her expression turning cold. Ingrid, don't push your luck. My father snapped as he strode over, snatching the plate from her hand and shoving it toward my face. Eat what you're given. Don't stand there with that lifeless expression. I turned my head. The cake smeared against my cheek, and the cream stuck to my mask. I reached up and wiped it off. I'm allergic to peanuts. Don't you know that? The living room fell silent for a moment. My mother frowned. Since when are you allergic to peanuts? Why don't I know about it? Natalie muttered under her breath. She's just being a drama queen. If you don't want to eat, just say so. Why make up excuses? I stared at the crumbs scattered on the floor. When I was 10, Natalie had insisted on eating peanut butter blossoms, and my mother bought a whole box. I hadn't eaten all day and secretly took one. 10 minutes later, my body broke out in hives, my breathing turned labored, and I collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. When my mother saw me lying there, her first reaction was not concern. It was to check whether any of Natalie's snacks were missing. Ingrid, how dare you steal your sister's food? I clutched at her pant leg, my mouth open but unable to make a sound. Natalie cried beside her, throwing a tantrum. She ate my peanut butter blossoms. I hate her. My father kicked me aside. Get back to your room. Don't stand here and annoy your sister. I crawled back to my room and lay on the floor the entire night. The next day, the hives faded and I survived. From then on, I never touched peanuts again. And they did not even remember that I had almost died. I'll say it one more time. I'm allergic to peanuts, I emphasized, looking at them. And on the day Nellie was born, Dad closed the biggest deal of his career, so you all said she was lucky. But on the day I was born, Grandpa died of a sudden heart attack, so the fortune teller said I was a curse. My mother waved her hand impatiently, though her gaze flickered slightly. All right. So, you're allergic to peanuts. What's so impressive about that? And the fortune teller was right. You've been nothing but trouble since the day you were born. Now clean this mess right away. Your uncle's family is coming over for dinner. Don't just stand here and be an eyesore. Natalie sat down on the sofa, pulled out her phone, and started editing photos. Iggy, go cut some fruit. I'm thirsty. I tightened my grip on the suitcase handle. I won't. My father whipped his head around and pointed at my nose. Step out that door, and you'll be disowned. All right. I nodded and dragged my suitcase toward the door. Just then, the doorbell rang. My mother went to open it, and my uncle and his family stood outside. Hey Andrew, we're here. My aunt's loud voice echoed through the hallway. The moment she stepped inside, she saw me standing there with my suitcase. My aunt sized me up. Well, Iggy, where are you off to with such a big suitcase? Running away from home. Her children laughed along. My uncle walked in and set the fruit he brought onto the table. Andrew, your daughter's got quite the temper these days. My father's face darkened. He strode over, grabbed my arm, and dragged me into the living room. She's just throwing a tantrum. Sorry to let you all see this. My mother quickly ushered the relatives to sit. Come, sit. Nellie, go pour your uncle and aunt some water. Natalie stood up obediently, her voice sweet and cheerful. Uncle, aunt, please have some water. My aunt took Natalie's hand, beaming. Sensible as ever, Nellie, and so pretty too. Not like a certain someone, always hiding behind a mask like she can't be seen. Her daughter leaned back on the sofa and glanced at me. Iggy, you've been wearing that mask for over 10 years, haven't you? Doesn't it feel suffocating? Take it off and let us see if you've gotten even uglier. Laughter erupted across the living room, and my mother sat there, laughing along. With that face of hers? If she takes it off, you'll all lose your appetite. She'd better leave it on. I stood in the center of the room, like some kind of circus freak. I did not argue. I simply turned to pull my suitcase, but my father slapped the back of my hand. Where do you think you're going? Just then, Natalie pulled out a thick notebook from beneath a sofa cushion. It was my diary. Inside were all my plans for the future. My dream of getting into Columbus. Uncle, look at this, she said with a laugh. Isn't Ingrid ridiculous? She even wrote about making big money and leaving us. She even records every little expense on scraps of paper. How pathetic. My other cousin, Owen, snatched it from her hands and read aloud, his voice exaggerated. I want to leave this place and go somewhere no one knows me. When he finished, he burst out laughing. With a face like yours, you'd get laughed at no matter where you go. Those were the words I had written in despair, each letter carved out in the dark, my only anchor. Now they had become the evening's entertainment. I looked at the relatives enjoying themselves on the sofa. At Natalie, who casually handed me a glass of water, as if nothing had happened. At my parents, whose warning gazes silently told me not to make a scene. I let go of the suitcase handle. Fine. I'll go prep the vegetables. As I turned and walked into the kitchen, my aunt's voice boomed from outside. That's more like it. A girl shouldn't be so stubborn. If you're not pretty, you should at least work harder. Maybe then someone will be willing to marry you. My mother chimed in. A husband? Her? Pigs would fly before anyone actually wants her. I turned on the tap. Cold water rushed over my hands. I did not do anything. I just stood at the sink, staring out the window. 2.5 hours left. When I returned to the living room, I walked straight toward my suitcase. Natalie followed closely behind me. Dad, Mom, Iggy didn't do anything to the vegetables at all. The relatives in the living room stopped talking at once and turned to look at me. Natalie hurried forward, grabbed the handle of my suitcase, and yanked it into the center of the room. With a loud thud, it toppled over. She pulled the zipper open roughly, and my clothes and books spilled out across the floor. Look, she called out. She really packed everything. She even treats the old clothes I didn't want like treasures and wants to take them with her. So pathetic. My aunt covered her mouth as she laughed. Oh my, this girl's really committed to her show. Owen nudged the books on the floor with his foot. Classic move. Crying, making a scene, threatening to run away. She probably just wants more pocket money. My mother's face turned grim with embarrassment. She rushed over and pointed at the mess on the floor. Ingrid Scott, you're hell-bent on embarrassing me, aren't you? Clear up your junk now and get back to your room. My father grabbed the ashtray from the table and hurled it at me. I did not dodge, and it struck my shoulder before shattering on the floor. So you think you've grown up now, do you? Showing me attitude in front of everyone. He strode toward me and raised his hand to slap my face, but I caught his wrist firmly. He froze. In 18 years, this was the first time I had ever resisted. At that moment, Natalie raised her phone, the screen facing me. Voices overlapped noisily from it, and the display was filled with faces. Ingrid, I just started a group video call, she said with a laugh. I pulled in our high school classmates and teachers. Let everyone see how the top student in our class belabored her parents at home. My whole body jolted as I looked at the screen. In the center frame sat Ms. Knight. In my senior year, when I could not afford the review materials and fainted from hunger on the track field, it was Ms. Knight who paid for my meals. She had told me, Ingrid, knowledge changes fate. I believe in you. You'll make it out of here. In 18 years of darkness, she had been the only light I ever held onto. But now, on the other side of the screen, she frowned, her eyes filled with disgust. Ingrid, you've disappointed me deeply, she said. So what if you ranked first in the city? You have such poor character that you can't even respect the parents who raised you. Your sister said you bully her at home. I didn't believe it before. But now it seems your good grades can't hide your selfish nature. Apologize to your parents now. Don't run away from home and disgrace our high school. My classmates chimed in one after another. Exactly. Being ugly is one thing, but her heart's just as rotten. She wears a mask every day pretending to be mysterious. Turns out she's just ungrateful. Natalie held up the phone, laughing so hard she nearly doubled over. I looked at Ms. Knight on the screen, still lecturing me without pause. I looked at my parents and relatives, their faces full of glee at my humiliation. The dull, tearing pain in my chest suddenly vanished. I had always thought my parents simply favored my sister. But now I finally saw the truth. They had never treated me like a human being at all. I crouched down, picked up my documents and passport from the floor, and put them into my bag. The clothes and books, I left them behind. I stood up and looked at them. You've always thought I was ugly, that I embarrassed you. Now that I'm leaving, you should be happy. Natalie sneered. Leave? Where do you think you can go? Don't think we'll come looking for you. Even if you die out there, no one will care. I looked at her, then at Ms. Knight on the screen. I waited long enough back at the amusement park. I turned and walked toward the front door. Behind me, my mother shouted, Ingrid Scott, walk out that door today, and don't ever think about coming back. We didn't raise an ungrateful wretch like you. I pulled the door open without looking back. Fine by me. From now on, the three of them could enjoy themselves. The rain began to fall as the yellow taxi pulled away from the gates of the residential district. I sat in the back seat, watching the familiar street slip past the window. The bakery where my mother bought Natalie fresh pastries every weekend, the boutique where my father bought her limited edition dresses, the park where they had abandoned me 13 years ago. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my old phone and popped the SIM card out. I rolled down the window an inch and dropped the small piece of plastic into the storm drain below. No calls, no messages, no fake locations from Chess Royales. When I arrived at the international terminal of the airport, the hall was filled with bright lights and the low hum of announcements. I walked straight to the check-in desk of Flight UA 882 bound for Boston. Passport and boarding pass, please, the agent said with a polite smile. I handed over my documents. The agent scanned them, looked at the screen, and then looked up at me, her eyes widening slightly as she checked the system. Notes. Miss Ingrid Scott? She asked, her voice dropping into an attentive, respectful tone. The full scholarship recipient for the Department of Biomedical Sciences. At Columbia University. Yes, I said quietly. Your university counselor, Dr. Harrison, called our station an hour ago, the agent said, quickly tagging my single carry-on bag with a gold priority strap. She wanted to ensure your boarding was completely smooth. Your ticket has been upgraded to business class by the Foundation Board. Thank you. I took my new boarding pass and walked through the security line. Sitting by the gate, I looked at my reflection in the dark glass of the terminal window. I was wearing a simple gray hoodie, my black cloth mask covering the lower half of my face. Everyone in my family, and everyone at my high school, believed I wore the mask because I was ugly, scarred, and ashamed. When I was 6 years old, Natalie had played with a boiling water kettle on the kitchen counter. When it tipped over, I had thrown myself forward, pushing her out of the way. The scalding water poured down the right side of my neck and jawline, leaving a dark, textured scar. My mother hadn't hugged me or thanked me for saving her favorite daughter. Instead, she had slapped my unburned cheek and cried, "How could you be so careless? If you had let Nellie get burned, her life would be ruined. Look at you now, you're a hideously deformed monster." From that day on, my mother forced me to wear a thick cloth mask whenever I was outside my room. Don't embarrass your sister. Don't let people know my daughter looks like a freak. Over the years, the narrative shifted. My family forgot why I had the scar. They only remembered that I was the ugly twin, the curse, the girl who had to hide her face so the world wouldn't lose its appetite. I reached up, unhooked the elastic straps from behind my ears, and pulled the mask down. The scar on my neck was pale now, thin and silvered by time, a faint, neat line running from my jaw down to my collarbone. It didn't make me look like a monster. It looked like a thin ribbon of light drawn against my skin. The gate agent called for final boarding. I stood up, threw the black cloth mask into the recycling bin beside the gate, and walked onto the jet bridge without looking back once. Back at the Scott family villa, the rain had stopped, but the dining room was thick with smoke and laughter. Andrew Scott sat at the head of the long table, clinking glasses with his brother. "Come drink. Today is Nellie's 18th birthday, and my company just signed a $10 million distribution contract. Uncle, Aunt, drink up," Natalie chirped, wearing her floral designer dress, her phone propped up on a small tripod beside her plate. She was still monitoring the comments on the high school group chat. My aunt cut a slice of roasted duck and set it on her son's plate. "Andrew, that girl Ingrid really left? She didn't even stay to clean the kitchen?" My mother let out a cold, dismissive snort as she served soup. "Let her run. Where can an 18-year-old girl with no money and an ugly face go? She's probably sitting under the bridge down the street right now, waiting for us to call her." My cousin Owen laughed, chewing on a wing. "I bet she's crying her eyes out. Did you see her face when Ms. Knight lectured her on the live call? Priceless." Andrew took a deep gulp of liquor, setting his glass down hard. "Don't mention that ungrateful wretch during Nellie's birthday. Tomorrow morning, when she crawls back to the front door, no one is allowed to let her in. Make her kneel outside for 3 hours so she learns some respect." "Right. Make her kneel." Natalie giggled, snapping a selfie with her cake. Just then, the heavy iron gates outside the villa rattled loudly. A series of sharp, urgent knocks echoed through the foyer, followed by the sound of multiple cars pulling into the driveway. My mother frowned, wiping her hands on a cloth. "Who could that be at this hour? Did your friends come to celebrate with Nellie, Andrew?" "Must be the neighborhood committee or my business partners," Andrew said, puffing out his chest proudly. He stood up, adjusting his suit jacket. "Nellie, come with Dad to open the door. Let everyone see how pretty my daughter is." They walked into the foyer and pulled the heavy double doors open. Standing on the front porch were not business partners or neighborhood friends. It was a crowd of over 20 people. At the front stood the principal of City No. 1 High School, holding a massive bouquet of red roses and an official gold-embossed scroll. Beside him were 3 senior officers from the Municipal Education Bureau, 2 university admissions directors in formal suits, and a dozen news reporters holding heavy cameras and flashing lights. Andrew froze. His face instantly broke into a massive, obsequious grin. "Principal Miller, Director Zhang." Andrew stammered, bowing slightly as he stepped forward to shake their hands. "What a surprise. What brings the school board and the media to my house so late?" Natalie quickly struck a delicate, sweet pose beside her father, smoothing her dress, assuming the cameras were there for her. "Principal Miller, did you come to congratulate me on my birthday?" Principal Miller ignored Natalie completely. He looked past them into the foyer, his face beaming with immense, historical pride. "Mr. and Mrs. Scott," Principal Miller declared loudly, his voice echoing across the courtyard as the news cameras began flashing frantically. "Congratulations. The National College Entrance Examination results were officially unsealed by the ministry at 8 o'clock tonight." Andrew's heart skipped a beat. "Unsealed? Already?" "Your daughter," Director Zhang from the Education Bureau announced, holding up An official state certificate stamped with the red seal of the capital, has achieved a total score of 748 out of 750. The reporters squeezed forward, microphones thrust toward Andrew's face. She is the top scholar of the entire province. She broke the 20-year scoring record of city number 1 high school. Columbia University's International Foundation has awarded her a 4-year full presidential scholarship worth $300,000. Andrew stood rooted to the spot, his mind short-circuiting with sheer, intoxicating joy. 748 points. Top scholar of the province. A $300,000 scholarship. My daughter. Andrew stammered, tears of overwhelming pride bursting from his eyes as he grabbed Natalie's shoulders, pulling her toward the cameras. My Nellie. I knew it. I knew my daughter was a genius. Natalie's jaw dropped. She knew her own exam score couldn't possibly be higher than 400 points, but seeing the cameras and the gold scroll, her vanity completely overruled her brain. She puffed out her chest and beamed at the lenses. Principal Miller's smile instantly froze. He looked at Natalie, then looked down at the official certificate in his hand, his brow furrowing into a deep, sharp crease. Mr. Scott, what are you doing? Principal Miller asked, his tone dropping from warmth to utter, icy confusion. Who said anything about Natalie? The courtyard fell dead silent. The flashing camera lights seemed to freeze mid-blink. Andrew's hand remained glued to Natalie's shoulder. His smile faltered. Principal Miller. What do you mean? Isn't the top scholar my daughter? Director Zhang stepped forward, adjusting his glasses, reading the bold, black calligraphy printed across the top of the gold scroll. Provincial first rank, Ingrid Scott. We are here for Miss Ingrid Scott, Director Zhang said, his voice loud and clear, echoing off the marble walls of the villa. Where is she? The municipal governor and the university president are waiting on a live video link to offer her their personal congratulations. Andrew's face turned from a flush of ecstatic red to a chalky, sickly gray. My mother, who had just stepped into the foyer holding a platter of fruit, dropped the porcelain dish. It shattered against the tile floor with a deafening crash. Ingrid? My mother whimpered, her voice cracking into a thin, pathetic squeak. Ingrid, the top scholar? The aunt and uncle, who had followed them out to watch the spectacle, stood paralyzed near the dining room door. Cousin Owen's mouth hung wide open, a piece of duck still tucked in his cheek. Natalie's face went completely ghostly white. No, that's impossible. She's stupid. She's ugly. She wore a mask every day. She couldn't even afford the study guides. I'm the one who got into college. Principal Miller's expression turned utterly cold. He looked at Natalie, then looked at Andrew and my mother. Miss Natalie Scott, your preliminary exam score was 382 points. You failed to reach the undergraduate threshold. A collective gasp erupted from the reporters. 382 points. And her sister scored 748. Wait, where is Ingrid Scott? Why, isn't the top scholar out here to receive her award? Andrew's knees buckled. He clutched the doorframe to keep from falling cold, sweat pouring down his forehead. Where is she, Mr. Scott? Director Zhang demanded, frowning deeply as he looked at the tense, awkward atmosphere of the household. We called her personal phone, but the line has been permanently disconnected. We called your home phone, but no one answered. Just then, a sleek black sedan pulled up behind the reporters' vans. A woman in a crisp navy suit stepped out of the car, carrying a thick leather briefcase. It was Dr. Harrison, the senior admissions counselor from Columbia University's Asia-Pacific office. She walked straight past the reporters, stopping in front of Andrew. Mr. Andrew Scott? Dr. Harrison asked flatly. Y.J.S. Andrew stammered, bowing frantically. Dr. Harrison, I am Ingrid's father. I am not here to see you, Mr. Scott, Dr. Harrison interrupted, her voice devoid of any warmth. I am here to deliver a formal legal notification from the Municipal Court and Columbia University's legal department. She pulled a stamped document from her briefcase and handed it to Andrew. At 4 p.m. today, prior to her departure on Flight UA-882, Miss Ingrid Scott formally executed her legal declaration of adult independence and family severance. The courtyard went deathly quiet. The news cameras zoomed in close on the paper in Andrew's hands. Under the state's emancipation statutes, Dr. Harrison explained, her voice carrying clearly across the entire yard. Miss Scott has legally severed all familial, financial, and filial ties with Andrew Scott and Eleanor Scott. She has renounced any claim to your estate, and she has legally revoked your rights as her guardians. Furthermore, Dr. Harrison added, pointing to the secondary clause, the $300,000 University Foundation grant, along with the $200,000 Municipal Scholar Award, has been deposited into a Private, irrevocable educational trust under Miss Scott's sole name. You have zero legal authority to access, claim, or inquire about her funds. Boom. It felt as though a bomb had detonated in the middle of the Scott family villa. $200,000 in cash. $300,000 in scholarships. $500,000. And they didn't get a single penny. No. She can't do that. My mother shrieked, running forward, grabbing Dr. Harrison's sleeve hysterically. I raised her for 18 years. She's my daughter. She owes me. Dr. Harrison pulled her arm back with an expression of pure, unadulterated disgust. Raised her, Mrs. Scott. Dr. Harrison pulled out a tablet, tapping the screen to display a recorded video. It was the high school group video call from 2 hours ago, the call Natalie had started to humiliate me. On the high-definition screen, the entire nation could see the scattered clothes. On the floor, the heavy ashtray Andrew had thrown at my shoulder, the peanuts they had tried to force me to eat, and Natalie laughing while reading my private diary out loud. This video was archived by 17 students and forwarded directly to the Education Bureau and the Police Department, Dr. Harrison said, her voice dropping into an icy, dangerous register. A formal investigation into domestic abuse, child neglect, and malicious defamation has already been opened by the district prosecutor. The reporters broke into a frantic frenzy. Mr. Scott, is it true you beat the provincial top scholar with an ashtray? Mrs. Scott, did you force your daughter to wear a mask to hide domestic abuse scars? Natalie Scott, did you spread malicious lies to ruin your sister's reputation on live stream? Flashes exploded like lightning in Andrew's face. Natalie covered her head, screaming as she ran back into the house, crying hysterically. My mother collapsed onto the broken fruit platter on the floor, wailing like a dying animal. Andrew stood in the center of the courtyard, holding the paper that proved his brilliant daughter had erased him forever, while 20 news cameras captured his absolute, total, and permanent humiliation for the entire country to see. Within 48 hours, the Scott family scandal became the top trending topic across the entire nation. The contrast was too stark, too grotesque for the public to ignore. A brilliant, resilient girl who scored 748 points while wearing a mask to cover scars caused by saving her sister, and a family of abusers who threw ashtrays at her, tried to trigger her fatal peanut allergy, leaked her private diary, and celebrated the spoiled sister's birthday while leaving the valedictorian alone in an empty house. The public backlash was nuclear. By Monday morning, Andrew Scott's distribution company suffered a massive wave of contract cancellations. His largest business partners, many of whom were prestigious figures who valued public reputation, issued a joint statement severing all commercial ties with Scott Enterprises, citing unacceptable moral turpitude and domestic cruelty. His company's stock plunged by 80% in 3 days. Bank loans were called in early, and the $10 million distribution contract he had bragged about on Natalie's birthday was revoked by the client before the ink was even dry. At City No. 1 High School, the disciplinary committee held an emergency session. Knight, the teacher who had scolded me on the live video call without knowing the truth, was publicly reprimanded, stripped of her excellence in teaching title, and suspended indefinitely for failing to investigate child abuse and participating in the public shaming of a student. When Ms. Knight reviewed the full, unedited police report and saw the medical records of my peanut allergy and the scar on my neck, she sat in her empty classroom and wept tears of bitter, agonizing guilt until her voice went raspy. As for Natalie, her 382-point exam score became a local joke. The students who had once flattered her for her designer dresses now avoided her like the plague. Every time she walked down the street, people pointed at her and whispered, "Look, that's the fake princess who stole her sister's cake and leaked her diary. She's the reason the top scholar ran away to America." Unable to endure the crushing public shame, Andrew sold the luxury villa at a fraction of its value to pay off his corporate debts. The family of 3 was forced to move out of the affluent residential district into a cramped, damp, 2-room rental apartment near the old industrial railroad. The designer bags were sold. The floral dresses were gone. And every single night, as the trains roared past the thin walls of their cheap apartment, Andrew and his wife would sit at a rickety wooden table, staring at an empty plate, fighting bitterly over who had driven their golden daughter away. For years past in the blink of an eye, Boston, Massachusetts, the grand auditorium of Columbia University's Biomedical Research Center was packed with over 1,000 international scientists, corporate investors, and medical journalists. Today was the annual Global Biotechnology Innovation Summit. On the main stage, a young woman stood before a massive digital display, delivering a keynote lecture on a breakthrough non-invasive tissue regeneration technique for severe burn victims. She wore a sharp, tailored ivory suit, her dark hair falling in elegant waves over her shoulders. Her posture was straight, her voice clear, confident, and magnetic. On her right jawline, a thin silvered scar caught the stage lights, not as a mark of shame, but like a delicate ribbon of platinum drawn against her glowing skin. It was me. As you can see from the clinical trial data, I said, pointing the laser presenter at the slide. Tissue damage does not define the future of the organism. When the toxic environment is removed, the cell does not merely survive, it flourishes. The auditorium erupted into thunderous, standing applause. In the front row, Dr. Harrison and the dean of the medical school stood up, clapping proudly as I accepted the Global Young Innovator Award. After the conference, I walked through the glass atrium of the convention center, accompanied by my research team and 2 security officers, holding a bouquet of white lilies. A local Chinese news correspondent stepped forward, holding a microphone. Dr. Scott, the reporter asked politely in Mandarin, your breakthrough technique has been acquired by 3 major international pharmaceutical firms today for $50 million. News of your success has reached your hometown. Do you have any words for the people back in city number 1? I stopped walking. I looked at the news camera, my expression calm, serene, and completely unburdened. For years ago, I thought my life was a dark, endless tunnel where I had to count to 100 with my eyes closed, waiting for people who would never come back. For me, now standing under the bright, clear sky of a world I had built with my own hands, I realized that the tunnel was never my home. It was just a place I had walked through on my way to the sun. I have only one thing to say. I smiled softly into the lens. Knowledge changes fate. Never wait behind the tree. 6 months later, in the dreary, damp rental apartment near the Industrial Railroad in city number 1, the small, static-filled television in the corner was playing the evening international news. Andrew Scott sat on a broken plastic stool, his hair completely white, his hands rough and calloused from working as a day laborer at the local freight docks. His wife sat on the edge of a thin mattress, sewing cheap factory garments for a few cents apiece. Her face was gaunt, her eyes hollow and milky. Natalie sat at the rickety table, wearing a faded second-hand coat, her beauty long gone, replaced by a bitter, sharp scowl. She worked as an entry-level cashier at a nearby supermarket, earning barely enough to buy bread. On the television screen, a news report began to play. Today, the municipal government announced the establishment of the Ingrid Scott Educational Trust, funded by a $10 million personal donation from Dr. Ingrid Scott. The trust will provide full scholarships and medical support for abused and disadvantaged students across the province. The screen showed a large, beautiful photograph of me standing on stage in Boston, holding the gold award, smiling radiantly beside the university president. Andrew stared at the screen. His hands began to shake violently. The tin cup of cold tea in his hand spilled over, soaking his pants, but he didn't feel it. He looked at the woman on the screen, a world-renowned scientist, an international billionaire, a figure honored by governors and university presidents. A girl who had belonged to him. A girl whose hand he had slapped away. A girl he had beaten with an ashtray over a $20 box of peanut cake. Ingrid. Andrew rasped out, a choked, rag sob tearing from his throat as he stumbled toward the television set, touching the cold glass screen with his filthy, callous fingers. My daughter. That's my daughter. Shut up. Natalie screamed, throwing her wooden spoon against the wall, tears of pure, agonizing jealousy and regret bursting from her eyes. She's not your daughter. She erased us. She doesn't even use our family name in her biography. My mother dropped her sewing needle. She looked at the screen, then looked at the cold, greasy floor of the dark rental room, and buried her face in her hands, letting out a horrific, heartbroken wail that was instantly swallowed by the deafening roar of a passing freight train outside the window. They had made a bet 18 years ago. They had bet that the ugly, cursed girl would crawl, beg, and kneel for their love forever. And in the end, they had lost everything, leaving them trapped in the dark forever, while the girl they abandoned soared high into the eternal, golden light.